The lawyer stood tall in the courtroom, straightening his expensive suit as if the room belonged to him. His name was Sterling Blackwood, and everyone in Fulton County knew it. Judges nodded when he entered. Clerks smiled. Prosecutors made space for him in the hallway. Sterling didn't just practice law, he dominated it. He had won cases that shouldn't have been winnable and destroyed people who couldn't fight back. Today, to him, was another easy win. At the defense table sat Marcus Thorne. He wore faded clothes, a plain shirt, and worn boots. He had no lawyer beside him, no papers spread across the table. He sat still, hands folded, eyes calm. Sterling noticed him and smirked. He had seen hundreds like him. Poor, quiet, alone, already defeated before the trial began. Sterling leaned toward his client and whispered that this case would be over before lunch. His client laughed softly. The judge, an old friend of Sterling's, looked bored already. Everything was going exactly as Sterling expected. When the judge asked Marcus if he had a lawyer, Marcus answered simply that he would represent himself. Sterling nearly laughed out loud. He stood and made sure everyone heard him when he said the defendant's choice was foolish and would only make things worse for him. The judge allowed it without hesitation. Sterling began questioning Marcus as if he were a child. He spoke slowly, using simple words, mocking his intelligence. He corrected Marcus's grammar. He joked about his education. A few people in the gallery laughed quietly. Marcus did not react. He answered calmly, briefly, never raising his voice. That irritated Sterling more than anger would have. He wanted fear. He wanted embarrassment. Instead, Marcus watched him closely, like someone listening rather than losing. Sterling called his first witness and painted Marcus as a dangerous squatter, someone who didn't belong, someone who refused to leave property he didn't own. He spoke with confidence, knowing the judge would not question him. When Marcus objected, Sterling rolled his eyes. The judge overruled Marcus almost every time. Still, Marcus stayed calm. When it was Marcus's turn to question the witness, his voice changed. It became steady and precise. He asked questions Sterling hadn't expected, about dates, documents, ownership details. Small cracks appeared in the story. The witness hesitated. The judge shifted in his seat. Sterling dismissed it as luck. Then Marcus presented a receipt that proved the witness had lied about a key moment. The courtroom went quiet. Sterling tried to recover, brushing it off as a mistake. But something had changed. The air felt heavier. Sterling decided to end it by putting Marcus on the stand. He smiled as Marcus stood. This was where he would finish him. Sterling questioned Marcus aggressively. He spoke about his lack of employment, his missing records, his simple clothes. He asked how a man like him survived. He suggested criminal behavior without saying it directly. He relied on the room's assumptions. Marcus answered calmly. He corrected Sterling when he misstated facts. He cited laws Sterling hadn't expected to hear from someone he believed was uneducated. Then Marcus pointed out Sterling's mistakes. Real mistakes, missed filings, undisclosed conflicts, specific laws, specific violations. Sterling froze. The judge looked uneasy. When Marcus reached into his jacket, the courtroom tensed. He slowly pulled out a badge. Everything stopped. Marcus explained who he really was, a federal agent, undercover, The house was part of an investigation. The trial was the trap. The FBI entered the courtroom moments later. Recordings were played. Voices filled the room. Sterling's voice, the judge's voice, the client's voice, speaking freely, arrogantly, believing no one important was listening. The judge dropped his gavel. Sterling couldn't speak. The power he had carried his whole life vanished in seconds. Handcuffs replaced confidence. Cameras replaced applause. By the end of the day, Sterling was no longer a lawyer in control of the room. He was a man in an orange jumpsuit, standing where Marcus had once stood, being judged without sympathy. Marcus watched quietly from the back of the courtroom. Sterling finally understood what he had failed to see from the beginning. Intelligence does not always wear a suit. Power does not always speak loudly. And the most dangerous person in the room is often the one everyone underestimates. Sterling felt the weight of the handcuffs the moment they closed around his wrists. The metal was cold, unforgiving, nothing like the soft leather of the briefcase he had carried into court that morning. The room that once felt like his kingdom now felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were pressing in on him. He tried to speak, to object, to demand his rights, but no words came out. His mouth opened, but his voice had abandoned him. The judge, the same man who had smiled at Sterling only an hour earlier, now sat pale and trembling. His eyes avoided Sterling's. The man Sterling had trusted without question was suddenly distant, already protecting himself. Sterling realized then that loyalty built on power vanished the moment power disappeared. The FBI agents moved quickly. They guided Sterling, his client, and the judge toward the door. Cameras flashed from the hallway as reporters shouted questions. Sterling tried to keep his head high, but his legs felt weak. Every step echoed like a reminder that this was real. This was happening. Outside the courtroom, the hallway buzzed with whispers. Lawyers who once greeted Sterling warmly now turned away. Some pretended to check their phones. Others stared, unable to look away. Sterling had never been invisible before. Now he was something worse, a warning that he was pushed into a transport vehicle. The door slammed shut, sealing him inside with the sound of finality. The smell was harsh and unfamiliar. He sat on the bench, staring at the floor, replaying every moment of the trial in his head. Every insult, every smirk, every assumption he had made about Marcus. Across from him, his former client sat in silence, shaking. Sterling wanted to blame him, to shout that this was his fault, but he knew the truth. He had chosen this path. He had crossed lines because he believed he was untouchable. The detention center stripped Sterling of what little dignity he had left. His suit, his watch, his shoes, all taken away. He was handed an orange uniform that felt rough against his skin. When they called him by a number instead of his name, something inside him cracked. The holding cell was loud and crowded. Men talked, laughed, argued. Sterling stood near the wall, trying to make himself small. For the first time in his life, no one cared who he was. No one cared what he had accomplished. His past meant nothing here. A man recognized him from the news. Another laughed. Sterling felt fear settle deep in his chest. Not the fear of losing a case, but the fear of being powerless. Hours later, he was given a phone call. He dialed his wife with shaking hands. Her voice was cold, distant. She told him the accounts were frozen. The firm had fired him. She was filing for divorce. The call ended before he could beg. Sterling sat back down on the bench, staring at the wall. The silence around him felt louder than the courtroom ever had. The next morning, Sterling was led into another courtroom, this one smaller and colder. A public defender stood beside him, flipping through files without interest. Sterling tried to speak, tried to explain, but she silenced him gently and told him to listen. The charges were read aloud. They seemed endless. Each one felt like another door closing. Bail was denied. The gavel struck as Sterling was led away. He caught sight of Marcus sitting quietly in the back of the room. Marcus did not smile. He did not celebrate. He simply watched. That look stayed with Sterling. Days passed, then weeks. Sterling learned the rules of survival. He learned when to speak and when to stay silent. He learned that respect here was earned differently. Slowly, painfully, he learned humility. He spent hours in the small library, reading law books not to dominate, but to help. Other inmates came to him quietly, asking questions. For the first time, Sterling used his knowledge without cruelty, without arrogance. It was the only way to stay safe, and perhaps the only way to stay human. Meanwhile, Marcus moved on. The house was seized. The money was recovered. The corruption unraveled far beyond what Sterling had known. Officials resigned. Investigations spread. Lives were changed. One afternoon, as Marcus prepared for another assignment, he drove past the courthouse. He looked up at the building, then kept going. He didn't feel victory. He felt resolve. He had done his job, and somewhere behind concrete walls and locked doors, Sterling Blackwood finally understood the lesson he had refused to learn his entire life. Being uneducated was never the crime. Underestimating people was.